Good morning and welcome to the April 21st State Transportation Commission meeting. I know it's end of April because I see spring out there, although on Monday I thought we were still in December. First thing we have is the director's report.
Morning, Mr. Chair. You kind of surprised me there. I thought you were going to introduce some of your new members, but
I see that under Commission business right after you. Nothing
Okay.
is more important than you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everybody. I just want to kind of run through some slides, my report for this meeting. These are the topics I'm going to cover today. First, talk about the fiscal year 2021 accomplishments. We had a very busy and historic year last year, and this year actually promises to be even bigger. A little bit about Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA as it's called, and kind of share some regional updates about the IIJA funding projects and high-impact projects across the state. Update you on what's going on with our two Monroe garages. As you know, well, I'll talk a little bit about it when we get there. And then the process we went through with County Road Association to be able to get a contract ratified and signed by both sides on time. So we didn't have to do any extension and kind of be going month to month like we did in previous years. So with that, I'm going to, again, last year we spent about $2.6 billion, which is probably the highest we've ever spent as MDOT on our infrastructure in the history of the state of Michigan. That $2.6 billion equates to about 33,420 jobs either created or supported. So we are part of the big economy of the state. And I'm not going to go through each of the items on this slide, but just to kind of see how all the money is divvied up. We had a very, very busy year last year. And I can't thank the MDOT staff enough for all they did under the situation of the pandemic, working from home and still getting this kind of volume of work out. We, for as long as I've been in the department, asking for more money to get a lot of work done, and with the dog that caught the car, and now we had to perform, and I think, again, everyone at MDOT rose up to the challenge, and we're still doing that. So, again, my hats off to a lot of the MDOT employees here and that are not here for all you're doing. This slide is to just kind of show you that this year is even going to be more than last year. We anticipate our program is going to be about $3.5 billion with supporting or creating about 46,352 jobs when it's all said and done. This is even more historic than last year. Just want to call your attention to the fact that, you hear inflation going on all over the country. It's not just MDOT. This is a countrywide issue. These numbers showing how we started, we were doing very well. If you remember, I think it was late last year, I kind of shared the numbers with you. We were getting a lot of bid savings. But now we're beginning to see higher bid numbers compared to our engineers' estimate. Those red numbers you see there are the differences between the low bid and engineers' estimate. At one point, you can see in one of the projects, we had about a 29, almost 30% difference between the low bid and engineers' estimate. What I tell people is that what I'm finding out is that even we have 2 or 3 bidders, the bid numbers are very close to each other, even though the low bidders number may be way higher than our engineers' estimate. So we probably need to adjust our numbers. But still, it's not like there's a lot of work out there. The contractors are trying to gouge us. It's just the nature of the game right now. Hopefully this will change, but that's what we're seeing. If you look at engineers' estimate compared to the low bid numbers, engineers' estimate 1.8 and low bid numbers is 1.9, about a 4.4% difference, which is relatively still not bad because, again, we banked a lot of money at the beginning of the Rebuilding Michigan project. So just kind of want to show you that the numbers are beginning to come in higher, and we're monitoring it as best we could. This slide is just kind of giving you practically what I showed earlier, how the inflation numbers just continuing to go up. Since 2010 to where we are now in 2022, we went from, the cost of reconstruct, which is the green line, used to be about 1.2 million. Now it's about 3.25. So it's just, cost of material and everything's just going up. Here, the highway program investment as I go out talking to trade groups or any stakeholder group, I try to let them know that this good time is not going to last very long. And we as a state needs to start having a conversation on what are we going to do when we get to almost the end of 2023-24. As you can see there, after the Rebuilding Michigan program drops out, which is that orange piece of that bar, our program drops drastically. By 2026, we're almost back to where we started. So having that conversation now, what do we do to boost our numbers back up is going to be very critical with all the stakeholders. And the other thing that's adding to this is we having electric vehicles hitting the market now. That's beginning to chip away at the gas tax revenue that's coming in. We've been having conversation with Cray, MITRE, to talk about how do we start calculating this on a yearly basis to kind of start calling attention to the fact that we need to start talking about what a new revenue source is going to be, because the gas tax, obviously, the more the electric vehicles flood the market, the less tax we're going to be collecting, and this is a dying way of funding our infrastructure. Again, as I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about the IIJA reauthorization of the Surface Transportation Program for 5 years. Was part of that whole package. The President signed this to law on November 15. What's in it for Michigan? $7.9 billion. As I said, that also includes the 5-year reauthorization. $2.4 billion in new highway funding compared to fiscal year 21. It's going to go through the federal aid highway program formula. General fund supplemental appropriations is about $700 million. Bridges, based on what we're going to get, about $563 million, which equates to about $110 million annually for 5 years. On the transit side, $1 billion, $200 million per year for 5 years. Rail, we're going to be getting about $66 billion nationally, and then aviation funds is about $25 billion nationally as well. Sharing the federal aid, obviously we get 75% goes to trunk line, and the locals get 25% of that money. Promoting resilient, there's a lot of grants out there. This is, to me, perhaps one of the better piece of this legislation is that they kind of carve out different grants for different issues, resiliency, climate, you name it, and everybody can go after any of this grant as it's applicable, and we are working hard to try and make sure we take advantage of this opportunity. Part of what we're also doing is several of us went to Washington in February for our annual Washington briefing, and we visited some of our congressional delegations. What we heard from them is this is not just aimed at you are an expert in this. We're not worried about you being able to take advantage of this and getting grants. We would like for you to also help the locals to be competitive in getting some of these grants. Some of the locals that don't even have engineering department, how do they get in the broadband, take advantage to have broadband in their community? So we are working with a lot of different groups right now to put something together where we can have consultants help these local agencies or counties or cities to be able to get some of these grants and help them walk them through the process of applying for the grant, getting the grants. The whole soup to nuts approach really is what we're hoping to achieve with it. So I will hopefully be able to update you more as we move forward. So I want to talk about what do we plan to do with the IIJA money. We felt the governor's $3.5 billion Rebuilding Michigan money, the focus was on highly traveled roadways with economic impact, and that meant a lot of freeway projects. Now we decided we're going to use this money to take care of Main Street. We have a lot of trunk lines that runs through Main Street that needs repairs as well. And also not just the pavement repair and reconstruction, it's also how do we make sure we take care of the utilities underneath, the rusted water pipes that hasn't been touched in 50, 100 years and all that stuff. So that requires a lot of coordination as well with the locals. In some cases, they may not even have the money because they have to pay for that, for the replacement of those pipes. They may not be ready for us, so we're trying to coordinate this and schedule the work to make sure that we accommodate their need as well. Because you go in a community, you dig up the pavement, you want to take care of everything while you open up the roadway to make sure that when you close it back up, just like Tony or whoever's walked in Metro will tell you way back in those days in the 80s and 90s, we'll go do a project in the city of Detroit, and then 2 months later, a new pavement, we're ripping it up because there's a water main break underneath the pavement. So these are things that there's a lot of moving parts to putting all this together. Any construction engineer would tell you I'd rather do a freeway job than a Main Street job because, with freeway jobs, you don't have to worry about all those things. But anyway, the point is that there's a lot of things that we need to do to coordinate this to start getting the walkout. Again, as I mentioned, this is mostly trying to make sure we spend the money on local on Main Street projects. The program will go beyond road infrastructure and address, as I said, potentially drinking water quality, managing stormwater to mitigate climate change impacts, modernize energy grid, and incorporate broadband. So IIJA in Superior Region, these are some of the projects that we're looking at doing. I-75 Cheeseman Road overpass in St. Ignace, also in Escanaba, US 2, North 30th Street to Danforth Road, and then a CN Railroad Bridge. In Grand Region, they have a lot of, about 4 or 5 projects that they want to focus on without going into each of these projects, because for sake of time, I'm sure you have questions later that I could answer. North Region as well, I-75, and then M72 widening is what they choose to focus on. University Region is going to do US 23 road reconstruction, bridge reconstruction, and rehab, and also Reedy Road over I-75 bridge reconstruction. Southwest Region's got so many, several projects in their communities that they would like to work on. And Southwest, this is also part of Southwest Region. The high impact projects is US 31 and I-94 rebuilding in Benton Harbor, I-94 widening in Kalamazoo, and I-94 road bridge walk from I-94 BL to Britain Avenue. Bay Region, again, there are several projects that they're looking at working on as well. Their high-impact project is the I-69 from M24 to Lake George Road. It's a $55 million project. It's been done by Toby, freeway reconstruction. The project's expected to be completed in 2023. In Metro, bridge walk on I-94, M39, I-696, and M10. So talk a little bit about the 2nd Avenue over I-94 project in Detroit. I actually drove through this 2 days ago. I was in Detroit for an event, and I drove by. The project's coming along very well. This bridge is being built on the side, and they're going to move it over the I-94 freeway when they're done. If you've driven through the I-94 corridor by Wayne State area there, it is a very, very busy corridor. So I want to commend Matt Chinowd and the team for coming up with this idea to build it on the side and roll it in. It's going to look very, very beautiful once it's done. This is just another pictorial view of it, kind of showing how the bridge is going to be slid in place. Let me see if it, no, it doesn't go far enough, but that's the idea in a nutshell. Again, some of the high impact projects in Metro is going to be 14 miles of reconstruction. The I-275 project, as you know, it's ongoing right now, and that started last fall, and it's a big project. The project's completion is 2025. This freeway takes about 190,000 vehicles per day, which is a lot of vehicles, and 65 bridges along that corridor. So what we also try to do with that project and several other projects to make sure we're being inclusive, because equity is a big thing, is to try and not just do one big consultant package, try to unbundle a lot of this contracts so that we give some of the small businesses and DBEs an opportunity to prime a project or prime a piece of the project and be part of a big project like this. This is just an indication of some of how we were able to break up a big project on this I-275 project. As you can see, we ended up with about 7 consultants working on that project. This is about a $275 million project, and we felt it's necessary to do that. Another high-impact project in Metro is the I-96 Flex Route. This project has started already. If you've ever driven the US 23 project, Flex Route in University Region between Brighton and Ann Arbor, this project's almost going to be similar to that. Again, on a big project like that, we decided the best thing to do is to kind of break down the big contracts into smaller pieces, give a lot of small businesses the opportunity to be part of a project like that. So talk a little bit about the Monroe Garage. As you're aware, 2 or 3 years ago when the governor came in, prior to her coming in 2018, we were having a lot of issues with Monroe County as far as our contract is concerned. We tried very hard to try and reach an agreement with them, but obviously we did not get there. They decided they want to opt out of the contract. So when they did, Tony and his team did an outstanding job getting a private contractor on board right away to help us bridge that gap, get a 3-year contract while we work on trying to get funding to build new garages. And we started building those garages. Tony and I believe November last year, we visited the garages just to see how the progress is going. And it's going very well. We had an unfortunate incident where a worker got killed in one of the garage sites earlier this year. It kind of slowed things down a little bit, but I think we're back on track with the hope that by June, July, August, the garages will be open. We're beginning to hire. We've hired the garage supervisors for those 2 garages. Now we're going to get the staffing interviews going and then start equipping it once it's done. Hopefully this fall we'll have it all set to go for the winter. But again, it's just describing the main crux of it. It's going to be four main buildings. Main garage is 2, then 2 salt storage building, heated storage building, and cold storage building. Number of full-time employees is going to be 10 in 1 garage, 7 transportation TMWs, 1 TMW9, 1 transportation maintenance supervisor, and 1 heavy equipment mechanic. So again, this was a heavy lift by Tony D. Parker and the folks in the University region to get us to a point where we can finally be back plowing snow and taking care of our roadways out in Monroe County. Just a quick touch on the process that we went through to get the CRAE contract signed, because I thought it's necessary to talk about some of the success stories of why partnership is very important. A few years ago, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, we had a hard time reaching an agreement with CRAE on several issues. CRAE is County Road Association of Michigan, and they do a lot of work for us all over the state. And their members, we had, there was a stalemate where we were doing month-to-month extension of the old contract. So what we decided to do when we came in, Tony and I decided to meet with Denise and Ed and say, okay, we don't want to get to that point again this time around. Let's start it a year in advance, and we put a team together that started working on this issue, put a list of all the issues in writing, and slowly start chipping away. As you can see, over 70 issues were brought to the table, and this was the schedule. We kicked it off in 2019 and trying to get to October 2021 timeframe. We came in January 2019. By July, we had a team in place, and this was the process of getting there. And I have to say that I'm so proud of the work that our team and CRAE did to get to the finish line. So by the time we got to the contract renewal, all these issues were resolved, and it was just an easy way of signing the contract. So that's pretty much my report today. In closing, I'd just like to say that I want to acknowledge a very true friend of mine that we practically came into the department about the same time, that decided he's moving on. He's given him that 30 good years, and he would like to go try something different in the private sector. Believe me, I tried to talk him out of it, but once he made up his mind, all I could do is support him. So again, I want to wish him well. Let him know that he's done some great things here at MDOT. His fingerprints all over the place, and we're very thankful for his 30 years of service. Tony, stand up, please. I know he doesn't like stand up and get recognized. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
And Tony, I'm sure we'll have you back for some recognition formally at a later date, but on behalf of the commission, congratulations on a wonderful career with the state. You will be truly missed, and I'm sorry to see you go. On a personal note, I've known you now 12 years, and I will miss you personally.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, one area that Tony's been extremely helpful on has been in the last few years as we've tried to continue to pursue the Gordie Howe International Crossing. Tony has been the technical and diplomatic, if you will, link between Michigan, between MDOT and the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority, and has played an unbelievably critical role. He will be difficult to replace. His technical skills, I don't think would be in question at all with anyone in this room, but his diplomatic skills are excellent, and his credibility with our counterparts across the river in Windsor is incredible. So thank you, Tony. You've been a very critical player, and your support of the International Authority and those of us on the Michigan side, we will miss you greatly. Thank you.
Maybe we could get him to stay by saying if he doesn't stay, we will rename the bridge after him. We know that. That was something he would absolutely hate. So Tony, if you want to take 24 hours and think about the Cradiful Bridge. All right, we will, and let's have any questions for the director. Just speak up, don't need to ask the chair. I have a question, my usual question, inflation, and you answered it before I even got a chance to ask it, but how are we seeing inflation impact our colleagues at MDOT in terms of private sector people coming along and offering even more money, and how is it affecting us at our employee level?
Well, I think the challenge is, let me step back. We had a meeting with civil service about a couple weeks ago to make him understand that we have to be flexible in our compensation package. I gave him an example of a friend of mine. What the private sector does is they react quickly to changing conditions around them. I met with a friend of mine. He said, well, we lost 4 employees within a month period. And the whole management team quickly gathered together, and they realized that other consultants are offering their employees more money, and they restructured their pay system and compensation package within a week to keep who they have in place. And I gave them that example to say, I know state government doesn't react that way, but you got to give the departments the flexibility to be able to do something similar where we can offer packages based on where we see the needs are. I would imagine, I mean, they even said, you know, they're working on trying to do things like that. During the pandemic, there was need for nurses, and they had to try and offer the nurses more money. Now I just look at it as a whole union thing. We're losing engineers. How can we keep our engineers with maybe offering them more money, even if it's just for this short period of time, whatever the case may be, but to not do anything, you're just going to see that attrition rate increase. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I think civil service, I believe they heard us loud and clear that we got to look at ways of doing things differently.
Thank you. Any other questions for the director? I will note that I've been speaking to Senator Schmidt about work zone safety. I was driving in Florida and noticed they had a campaign and some criminal and civil penalties if you were a distracted driver in a construction zone. So I believe that he is going to try and work against some legislation to give us some more teeth to protect our consultants and our employees and our colleagues and friends. So I hope that he's able to move that through and talk to the department, and I know it's crucial to discussions we've been having over the last year.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And now on to the second most important item of the day, the introduction of our new commissioner. Heath, do you want to say a few words and tell us about yourself?
No, not really.
We do accept that answer, by the way.
I guess I'm not really that good at talking about myself, but I'll give you a brief summary of kind of what I've done and what I do currently. I've have about 26 years of experience in the industry, some family businesses, and the construction industry. I started at the bottom of that industry while going to school and worked my way through the ranks into management positions. Currently, I'm on a $1.6 billion pension fund for 14,000 member union in the state of Michigan that handles running the heavy equipment for the state as far as the operating engineers. We talked about the Gordie Howe Bridge. I oversee a team that works on that bridge and the management there. I oversee the Sioux Locks project, segment 3 that we have going on currently. All of the state infrastructure and transportation stuff as far as operating engineers in the state of Michigan. I oversee that. I deal with the contractors pretty much on a daily basis. I deal with MDOT on maybe a monthly or so basis with questions. We have conversations at events that we go to about safety, work zone safety things, and just seeing these guys last week in an event, work zone safety event, which is very important to all of us. So very involved with that stuff currently. Very involved with the contractors in the state of Michigan, probably about 500 contractors that we deal with. So that's kind of a brief summary of what I do and where I've been. So.
Thank you and welcome on behalf of all of us. Next is a motion to approve the minutes of the July 22nd meeting. We're still have the minutes coming next time of the meeting prior to this one. So I will entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed or abstaining? Wonderful. Next is the STC 2022 meeting schedule. Troy?
Good morning, Commissioners. Due to a scheduling conflict with the Mackinac Bridge Authority meeting that is currently scheduled for Thursday, July 21st, we would like to move the July meeting of the State Transportation Commission to Thursday, July 28th. Currently proposed that Thursday, July 28th meeting will be in conjunction with the TRDP event, and we will also, that you will hear about later in this meeting, and then we will also have a presentation by the Gordie Howe International Bridge, and then go out and tour the bridge. So if there could be a motion to amend the meeting schedule for the 2022 meetings.
Anybody would like to make that motion?
I'll move.
A second?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? Motion passes. Joanna, the TAMC nomination.
Good morning. I'm Joanna Johnson, current chair. I'm honored to be current chair of the Michigan Transportation Asset Management Council, and I'm here before you today to request my continued appointment representing the County Road Association, as well as the Michigan Association of Regions, to appoint Jacob Hurt. He is replacing Derek Bradshaw. We appreciate Derek's contributions to the council. Jacob is representing the Jackson Area Region Planning Commission, and that is the request for today. Again, I'm honored to serve as the Transportation Asset Management Council chair. And I also wanted to make mention that hopefully I'll be back before you to present the 2021 Transportation Asset Management Council Annual Report. And I look forward to meeting with the director to talk about the work of the Asset Management Council, and as well as to formally invite him, as well as the State Transportation Commission, to our annual conference. It will be in September, and we will be celebrating our 20 years of asset management. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be here before you today and your consideration on both of those appointments.
John, it's our honor to have you there, so thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Let's have a motion to approve those two appointments.
So moved.
We have a second?
Support.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Jack, what have you been up to?
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everybody. So in past meetings, I've spoken about the nature of fraud. I've described the history of the Exhibit B, which explains why certain projects exceeded the initial contract amount by more than 10%. And I've discussed the resolving of identified risks. So today, I'm going to speak briefly about OCA's independence and objectivity. And for context, I'll briefly touch on selected aspects of OCA's External Audit Division, which what they do is they recommend adjustments to billings from various types of vendors and grantees that do business with the department. So in calendar year 2021, we reviewed billings from 129 vendors and grantees for a total of about $151 million. And our reviews identified that MDOT owed vendors $9 million and was owed by other vendors $3 million. So we perform these reviews under professional standards that require us to be, among other things, lots of things, but they require us to be independent and objective. So when we do these reviews, we don't have a horse in the race. Some vendors or grantees might think that we have our finger on the scale in favor of MDOT, but we take steps to help ensure that we don't. The nature of the contract negotiations results in contracts and agreements that cut both ways. And we review, when we do our work, we review to the language in the contract. So by and large, over the course of the last decade, most vendors and grantees understand that OCA is objective and independent in these reviews. There are always one or two entities at any given time who feel or express aggravation at OCA's efforts, but those entities are usually those whose unfortunate decisions have been exposed by my team. Thus, the sometimes lonely world of auditors. So, some of the other work that we do also focuses on taxpayers' needs. For example, if our vendor services unit identifies that a vendor has overbilled us because of their processes or systems or philosophies, we will always recommend that MDOT make efforts to ensure that the vendor makes MDOT entirely whole as soon as possible. Vendors who inappropriately possess MDOT money are affecting MDOT's abilities, for example, to fix roads. Once explained to them, most vendors, first of all, they state that they understand their errors and make reasonable steps to timely repay MDOT, and they change their processes and their systems, and we hope their philosophies. So when we assess efforts by MDOT and grantees and consultants and contractors and all the related entities, our independent and objective consulting efforts can result in advice to MDOT. That advice is intended to be objectively helpful to taxpayers, the governor, and you. So thank you for another chance to share part of OCA's world with you. And if there are any questions or thoughts, I'm here.
Any questions for our auditor?
I'd have a question, Mr. Chair. Jack, so the $9 million and the $3 million that you cited at the beginning of your remarks, so just kind of generally what might drive, those are pretty big figures, so.
It's those entities, either by strategy or by just their abilities, the entities that we say, for example, we owe them money, it's because perhaps their accounting system just doesn't send the proper billings to MDOT. It's just the function. Or some entities like to have like a tax refund. They want to do the work, and a couple of years later they like getting a big refund from MDOT to pay them off. And then on the other side, the motivations for overbilling, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio, and
Right.
there is going to be, with all those entities, a certain extent of error that occurs. So
Okay.
does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
After 12 years of being here, it's nice to hear that we've actually been underbilled as opposed to overbilled. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Jack.
You bet.
Patrick, quarterly bid letting summary.
Good morning. Attached for your review is the quarterly bid letting summary documenting 249 projects with an engineer's estimate greater than $500,000 per project that were let from October 21 through the March 22 bid lettings. These projects were submitted to the Office of Commission Audit prior to each monthly letting. To my knowledge, OCA has no questions or concerns with regards to these bid letting items. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Brad? Bid justification summary.
With Shakina's help, I'm going to try to see if I can bring something up on the screen. I think it'll be a little bit more visual if we can kind of talk through it. I guess while she's bringing that up, I'll just give you some preliminaries. First of all, good morning, Commissioners. In the past, I have been bringing the Exhibit A2, which was essentially a whole bunch of memos called our Justification Memos. And anytime a project was, oh, thank you. Anytime a project was 10%, bid at 10% or more of the engineer's estimate and over, oh, perfect, and over $500,000, now I will turn it back, we brought that here for approval. So we've been working with OCA on, is that really the best information that you guys need to be informed to make policy decisions? You were reading these memos, they would tell you project by project what happened on that job with that material and that, that bid result. And here's why we think that happened and why it should be justified. We're going to change that up. And you don't see those memos in here anymore. One, we're going to bring this more for awareness and information, not necessarily for approval, kind of like the shift we made with Exhibit B several years ago. So we still do those memos right now internally because we still need an internal control process that makes sure that we're appropriately reviewing all the bids. So we're still doing that, but what we're providing you now is a summary instead of the information and hopefully a little more detail programmatically so you'll have a better idea of the health of the program and kind of what's happening. So let me see if I can navigate this. So the first graph you're going to see is just overall the fiscal year program, each by month, by letting. So there's a lot to digest here, but I'll try to break it down. Anything in blue is what we benchmarked as of October. So we kind of took a snapshot of our program. Each month, how many projects, that's in the bars, how many projects, and then the dollar amount is the line. And it's obviously a cumulative dollar amount. So that's what the blue numbers say. On October 8th of 2021, that's what our program looked like. The orange, or I think that's orange, the let projects, that's what we actually did let. So this is after we've gone through the bids, taken in the bids, kind of that's the result. The gray lines are what's on the books today. It's the snapshot as of, it's the same snapshot as the blue line, same thing, except for it's March 9th instead of October. So you can see there has been a change. Whereas we always intended to let about 2.2 billion, over this time frame, that has shifted a little bit outward. And every month when we add on the orange lines, it just kind of tells you what we did as far as taking in those bids. Obviously, the gray line is going to eventually match the orange line because we have to make adjustments to account for the overages. The bars on the bottom, Similarly, our numbers of projects. You'll see that in October, November, December, January, in March, we didn't let quite as many projects as we thought we would in October. Some of that kind of spills out. You can see where we have the planned projects in gray, April, May, June, July, August, September, et cetera. The table there is just showing month by month the cumulative engineer's estimate versus the cumulative low bids. By month, you'll see October, November, we're 1%, we're 7%. We have seen that kind of creep up. And from this time frame, October until now, we're running at about 11% over our engineer's estimate. I would like to point out that engineer's estimate is different from what we actually have programmed. At the end of the day, we need enough program to cover the ultimate costs. So a lot going on that graph. I fully expect there'll be questions and probably follow up at subsequent meetings to really understand these things. So that's the first one. This next one's interesting. This is a scatter plot that shows every one of these dots is a contract. It's a project, each dot. And it tells you on the horizontal scale what the dollar amount of that contract is. The vertical scale is percentage of the engineer's estimate. So we do an estimate right before we advertise the project. And our goal, we've kind of had this long-standing goal for as long as I can remember. We try to get 50% of our projects within 10% of the engineer's estimate. Our engineer's estimates are not gospel. They're not perfect. They're engineer's estimates. A lot of factors go into a contractor's bid, but we kind of want to maintain that sweet spot of being kind of in, you gotta be kidding me. That means talk real fast. All right, well, and it won't snooze on me either. All right, I'm not gonna waste any precious seconds. So, again, each dot's a project. We want them to be in that gray band, but you'll see some are above the line, some are below the line. But that is, again, if I estimated that my job was $1 million and it came in at $1.1 million, I'm 10% over. That's the general math there. This next graph is the same exact graph, but we truncate it at 5 million, so it's not so stretched out. You can actually see these dots. And again, you'll see some above, some below. We want to make sure that there's a concentration in that plus minus 10%. The red dot, that means we rejected the bids. We did our bid review. We opted not to do a justification memo. We said it's a bad deal. Let's reject it. And we work with local agencies as well on their projects that run through MDOT and have those same conversations. Another scatter plot, very similar. The other one was trunk lines. This is local agencies. And note that this is for quarter 2. Each quarter will be bringing you the new quarters. Again, the same type of information. We're trying to look and see as a program, where are our projects coming in? These are just another way of looking at the similar information. Being a math type person, I like the visual graphs to look at and the area under the curve, if those folks that remember having to calculate those things. We want this to be a high tight curve. We want everything to be as compressed as it can be within that. Those two lines are the 10% lines. And again, our goal is 50% on the trunk line side. We're at about 46, so not quite to where we want to be with 50%. And we would hope to expect kind of a balance, a nice shaped bell curve that's high and straight in the middle. The local agencies, very similar shape, although their projects are coming in a little bit over 50% within 10%. So another decent look at how the bids are coming in. This is an interesting one because if you read the memos that we provided before, we got to realizing that the justifications for a lot of these had common themes. It was around maintaining traffic restrictions. It was about the project location. It was about schedule. you know, when there was unique items that we may have not have a great handle and history on for their pricing. Small quantities, economies of scale. If I'm contracting out 100 tons of asphalt, I'm probably going to pay a heck of a lot more than 10,000 tons. So there's these kind of general reasons that we're seeing in the justifications. But again, having to read through multiple memos, here's kind of where we are programmatically. And I think the reason that these things are important, especially when you talk about location, schedule, and maintaining traffic, it's all about risk. You know, we can get an average cost for an average ton of asphalt, an average cubic yard of concrete. But at the end of the day, the staging, the traffic around them, you know, what they have to maintain with driveways, a lot of those restrictions add risk to the contract. The contractor's going to have to bid that. So when we review these and we say, you know what, yeah, there's a lot of risk here. There's a lot of these types of things going on with this project. It's likely justified. Unfortunately, for risk like that, there's not a lookup chart. You know, when we're doing our estimate that we can say, because of these three things, we should add 3.2%. It's much more qualitative than that. But again, these are the primary factors that affect our bidding. This one, I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around completely. Yeah, it's kind of a strange graph, but these are the individual pay items. So whereas these are kind of the general characteristics, the schedule, the restriction, the location, these are the actual bid items, because all of our contracts have line item bids. The bigger boxes are those where we're seeing the most differential between what we estimated and what we actually took in. Wonderful. So, minor traffic devices is one that it's kind of like almost like a mobilization. It's to pay for extraneous maintaining traffic items that you can't really quantify. A lot of these others, like you know, structures removed in cofferdams, a lot of lump sum items tend to get bid a little higher. Some of the work that happens early in a contract tends to get bid higher. If I were to talk to the contractors, I'm sure there's a lot of decisions that they make on their bidding with respect to cash flow on projects, so there are some reasoning. We are digging in deep on a couple of these, especially the lump sums and the early things like minor traffic devices, to look for patterns and see, are there changes we need to make in how we actually estimate those items. The next few in the packet are from Q1. It's a duplicate of what we had in Q2. We didn't have a meeting last 3-4 months ago, so we've included both of them. But we are now also providing you, where does it start? Here it is. This is a tabular version of what you used to get with the memos. It still tells you the contract number, still tells you the region, it still tells you the description, it tells you who all bid on the job and what those results were. We have a column that said, did we justify it or did we reject the bids? We put the justification factor in there, what's the primary driver for the overage, and we list the minor traffic devices as well. So here you can kind of look through and just, again, kind of get a help for how many bidders we're getting, what kinds of prices we're seeing, and again, what the driving factors for most of that is. In addition to that, because we're providing this on a monthly basis, sorry if this is making anybody dizzy in the room, but I will get, here it is. In addition, we also want to specifically call attention to the single bidders. These are all in the table up above by month, but we also want to kind of call those out. Those are, I have to sign all of those justifications for the department, so it's not something I take lightly, especially when you get a single bidder. If you got multiple bidders, you got good competition, you see tight bids, you think, all right, you know, this is a low bid environment, and that's the cost. When you have a single bidder, you always have to kind of step back and say, all right, let's double down on our review here and make sure that we really do think this is appropriate. We've done some analysis, worked with some of Jack's folks on this. When we have single bidders, we do tend to see a little bit higher pricing. So one of the things we are doing is kind of going to take a deeper dive into those and really say, where are they happening? What types of projects are they happening on? You know, what are some mitigation strategies that we might be able to employ to ensure that we're getting as big of a bidder pool as possible? So we're starting to look at that right now. But again, this is one more piece, again, for you to kind of see the health of our program rather than have to dig through details on all of those individual memos. And I believe that was the end of the new information that we will be providing for your information instead of the memos that we had before. So sorry I took so long, but I wanted to try to, at a high level, at least give you an idea of what we're looking at. So, Chairman?
Well, first of all, thank you. And you did warn us that we would be seeing a lot of information under the new format. I will say that the information is all there, of course, although I can't personally vouch for that it's all there. The graphs are great, but since you're still doing the justification memos for internal control, can we please get those going forward as well?
Sure. And as a matter of fact, we are working to actually replace the memos with a form, a much more easier to fill out form. The memos take a lot of literally administrative work to try to rewrite and wordsmith and all of those things that probably don't add as much value. So we'll also work with you then on what that form needs to include to make sure that all the information is as clear and transparent as it can be.
It doesn't have to continue to be the memos. As long as you're doing the memos, we'd like to see them, but whatever internal control that you're putting forth would be great for us to see that same internal control.
Absolutely, and actually, the new process is going to have more specific signature sign-off as well. Right now, I'm the only signature on those things. We're going to have signatures by the project manager, by the work area, and ultimately by me. So absolutely, we can.
And then on the single bidders, I can't recall ever seeing so many single bidder projects. That may be the most amount of single bidder projects ever, and may even altogether be as many as several years combined in the past. When you're looking at patterns, could we look at, see if there's contractor patterns as well?
Yes.
Are the same contractors, I mean, I don't want to be the one saying collusion, but it always, comes to mind is, okay, do we have one or two contractors who are just the single bidders in a majority of these? Because that would sound off alarm bells to all of us, I'm sure.
Absolutely, we can dig into that.
Anybody else have any questions? Wonderful. Yes.
So I'm guessing your engineer team is the same team, let's say, for the last couple of years, right? So we haven't had a big turnover there, but we're seeing increases in numbers. So that being said, do we have a feel that maybe the contractors, the availability of the contractors has increased those numbers?
I wish MITA was here to address that themselves. They would probably be the better ones to ask. I haven't seen anything, there's nothing glaring about that yet, but it's certainly something that we think about. We do keep track of the average number of bidders on a project. And I just saw this not too long ago. We just asked for it. And it wasn't as low as I thought it was going to be. That number fluctuates between about 3.5, 4.5 to 5 per contract, bidders per contract as an average over time. We're on the lower end, like at the 3.5, but it's not like it's wildly different than it has been in the past. So we're not quite seeing that yet. We've been talking about it. I do want to have some discussion with industry themselves to see if there's any trends or patterns that they're aware of as well.
The figures, 500 contracts over $500,000, that was, I think, agreed to in 1980, 79 or 80. If we made an adjustment to that based on inflation, I would suggest that 3/4 of these that you prepared for us to review would be unnecessary.
Yeah, we will. Just so you know, though, we're going to do our review on all projects. We're going to do our internal controls regardless if it's a $100,000 or $100 million. We still want to do that bid review. So we're still going to go through the process. I think the thought was, we already do it. It's easily to compile. Let's just go ahead and put it out there. But we can come up with that recommendation. It would narrow this a little bit and be less for you guys to have to wade through and maybe kind of, go with the biggest bang for the buck.
Another suggestion I would have is, I was trying to cut back on the amount of information you have to give us, but, or are willing to give us. But I got this last Friday. And I had a busy schedule, and it was meaningless to me to try and read these and have it any effect. And at my age, with the size type on this, it's a real challenge. I have to sit there with a magnifying glass. So if you're going to report to us, my suggestion is, let's put an inflation factor on it. That's going to cut down on it. And then, you gave us 6 months at once.
Yep. The only reason we gave you 6 months is because we didn't have the last meeting. So going forward, you'll have half of what's in there right now.
Yeah, okay.
So, but yeah, we can certainly take a look at the table itself to see if we can, maybe there's some columns on there that are nice to have, but as my computer restarts, maybe there's some things that are nice to have, but maybe not necessary, and we can kind of boil it down. We'll look for some of those recommendations as well.
Brad, this will be a trial and error process as
Yep.
we
Yep.
transition. Mike?
Just generally speaking, I love this. It's a lot more, it puts things into context a lot more than reading project by project. Trying to go through and say, there's a project in Gogebic County with, 17.5% overrun, trying to make some sense of that as a commissioner was always kind of like, what am I doing here? This shows it graphically and how it adds up and sorts out in a way that seems to me that's kind of where the commission ought to be, is looking at that kind of thing to be accountable on it. So I thought it was an eye chart, I'll grant you that, and I will appreciate only going through 3 months in the future. But the first part of it, the graphs and the pie charts, the quilt, I thought I was at a quilting bee. That's a little tough, but I understand the concept, and it makes some sense. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but it's interesting. But the pie charts are really helpful. I think it'll be interesting to see those pie charts, let's say, a year from now, and get a comparison year to year.
Yeah.
And that'll be very interesting.
Yep.
And then generally a question, Brett. If you're seeing quite a bit of discrepancy between engineers' estimates and actual, this may be a sensitive question, but do our estimating engineers get out in the field? What really red flagged it for me was the category project location. I mean, does the estimating engineer know the marshland in northern Midland County is different to do a project in than in the outskirts of the suburbs of Flint?
That's a really great question, and I'll explain kind of how our estimates are developed. The managers, our project managers for these projects, are located all over the state. They're in our regional offices, they're in the TSCs. They're the ones with the local knowledge. They're the ones that kind of run and do the initial estimates. in the design division, we also have a specifications and estimates unit that does the final reviews. They are much more central office-based. So they get the estimate, it comes in from the project manager. We have a system with a bunch of algorithms that looks at historical prices for the type of work, the quantity of work, the location of work, that kind of spits out what the average unit prices would be. Then there's a discussion between kind of the technical expert in the Lansing unit, that's a technical expert on estimating, with the project manager in the local setting to say, okay, here's what the program's saying. What do you think makes sense or doesn't make sense? That's when they have the conversations about risk. That's when they would have those types of conversations. Make that adjustment accordingly before it becomes final. So it's kind of a team. I would say the people in the central office unit, no, they don't get out in the field very often. But the PMs, the project managers themselves, are in the field. They are the ones out at the regional and TSC offices that provide that perspective.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Brad, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Jason, extras and overruns.
Good morning, Commission. I'm just going to go over the summary report for Exhibit B. Exhibit B is noting projects from October 2021 through March of 2022 that have been financially closed with our field folks. 153 MDOT jobs totaling approximately $277 million were finalized. 8 projects were more than the 10% threshold, and then 95 projects came in under the original contract amount. The final monthly cost for those 6 months varied between about -4% down to a -0.39%. They were all under in those 5 months. And then our fiscal year to date is averaging about -2.2%. So we're still achieving our goal. And then local agency projects for October through March would be 219 projects totaling around 188 million were finalized. 10 of those projects were more than 10%, and 126 projects came in under their original contract value. There are 7 MDOT projects and 11 local agency projects on Exhibit B. With that, any questions?
Congratulations, as always. It's always admirable to see that this continues to be a trend. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack.
A little bit more good news. Exhibit C is our 6-month financial review follow-up on unresolved service contract reviews where more than 120 days have passed since we issued the report. And as the report indicates, being blank, there are no unresolved service contract reviews that apply. And the last time actually that we had one was in April of 2019, and before that it was in March of 2015. So this is very good news. And I am asking the Commission to move to accept this report. And if there are any questions, I'm here.
Do we even move to accept that any longer? I don't think we have.
I work for you, so you can do that if you want, if you wish.
We'll just thank you for the report.
Okay.
How about other reporting?
I'm sorry?
Anything on other reporting? We've got you here twice.
Okay. The next thing is it's kind of an add-on to what Brad was doing here a little while ago. Was since we've last met, there's been movement towards changing the type and increasing the level of information provided by the department to the Commission. And depending on what you liked, and I think you did like what Brad had to offer, I think that there's going to be other aspects of MDOT that can be sending similar reports to you. I envision that some of the reporting will be annual, and once a year, kind of hear about a topic, and other reporting will be quarterly. The reports could cover things like the program or the part of the department's their mission or vision. Along with that, their key metrics, where they stand on things with the inputs, outputs, outcomes. Maybe they want to talk about the future or current challenges that they're facing. Things that you would like to know about, like Brad did, to help inform policy considerations. So I do plan to be meeting with portions of MDOT to see if we can put together, not the same thing as Brad, but things that apply to those parts of MDOT. That's basically it. I just want to kind of inform you that we're moving in that direction if you're generally okay with having those kinds of conversations.
All right, we look forward to seeing your additional thoughts once you've had those meetings with the department.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Jack? We will move into the presentations. Yep, we're going to move it around. We're going to start with the Governor's Office of Infrastructure, Zach and Tiffany.
And then the director's going to introduce him.
Okay. And I believe the director will be introducing you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which one are we doing? Which one is we doing? Which one is this infrastructure? Do I have a presentation? No presentation. Okay.
Mr. Chair, before I introduce Zach, I want to make a correction. Earlier in my presentation, I said myself and Tony were in Monroe inspecting those garages. Troy was with us as well. Troy, I apologize for missing you. I'd like to introduce Zach Culloden. Earlier in my presentation, I mentioned that MDOT is working with various local organizations to try and make sure that we capture all this grant money that's out there. So part of the IIJA Act is for each states to have more like an infrastructure office to oversee that the money that we get in our state is being spent the right way, so people are not using it to build buildings and buy equipment and furniture and all that stuff. So Zach Culloden is the governor's infrastructure director. Him and Tiffany Brown, right? Are in charge of these office, making sure that MDOT is coordinating all our activities with the locals. So I just wanted to introduce Zach. Then Zach, you can talk a little bit more about yourself and what you guys have done to date.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Thanks so much for having me here. Unfortunately, Tiffany is not able to join me today, but I'm delighted to be getting the opportunity to introduce myself. Ultimately, the governor appointed me to this position and created the infrastructure office because she is so passionate about infrastructure and about, really all aspects, fixing our roads, fixing our water, building the kind of broadband infrastructure that unlocks economic opportunity for disadvantaged folks all over the state. And sort of seeing the unique challenge that an infusion of $11 billion in infrastructure money coming to Michigan presents, felt that having an Office of Infrastructure situated right in the governor's office to help coordinate these interagency efforts to access these dollars and compete for federal discretionary grants and then actually get that money out the door and into built infrastructure would be really helpful. So, we really see the office as a continuation of the governor's commitment from, even the early days of her campaign to fixing Michigan's infrastructure, but really sort of amplified and accelerated because of the unique opportunities presented by the bipartisan infrastructure law. So, yeah, I'm feeling super blessed to have Paul as a partner and have MDOT as a partner in making the most of this opportunity. And, it's MDOT, obviously, for transportation and roads. It's EAGLE for water and environmental contamination cleanup. It's LEO for the immense workforce challenges that spending this level of funding on infrastructure in over 5 years entails. Leo additionally for the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, the MPSC for sort of the rebuilding and making more resilient our power infrastructure. And really it goes beyond that. I've got memos from 10 different departments on sort of how they're approaching these Infrastructure Act dollars and how they're going to make the most of that opportunity and what challenges they see for themselves. So I think we're really uniquely situated to help troubleshoot challenges that state agencies will face, help bring folks together that might not normally work together, and also try and make connections, as Paul said, between leadership at the state level and leadership at the local level, where many of these dollars will ultimately flow. Obviously, all projects are built at the local level, so there's, we gotta get buy-in at that level as well, and really trying to activate folks across the state to make the most of this opportunity. Anything else I wanted to cover today? I think that's just basically the general introduction. If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to have a conversation about our goals or just kind of how we're approaching this challenge.
I know you have a meeting back in the Capitol shortly, so anybody have any questions, or they maybe want to reach out at a later time to have a more intimate conversation? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your service and for all the work that you do planning out our transportation needs. It's much appreciated
It's an
by all of
honor.
us in the governor's
On behalf
office.
of all of us, it's an honor to serve the state.
Thank you.
TRDP, James and James.
While he's getting that going, we'll just introduce ourselves. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Director. I appreciate Troy for inviting us this morning. Yeah, thank you. So I'm James Foltz. I am the Workforce Programs and Recruitment Unit Manager inside MDOT's Office of Organizational Development. I had a few short slides, but really my main objective today was to introduce myself to the Commission. We're a relatively new unit. Started about 2.5 years ago. I started in January of 2020, and then 2 months later, I packed up my laptop and went home for a period of time, and then we're slowly coming back into the office. But it's been very beneficial to have that time virtually. We've connected broader within the department and kind of changed our strategy, connecting with individuals on really hard to fill positions. And I appreciate you bringing that up earlier, Chairman. There are challenges, but we're working through them, and we have really dedicated a lot more resources in the recruitment area than we ever have as a department. So I appreciate the time. I will hand it off to James to talk about the Transportation Diversity Recruitment Program.
Good morning, Commission. My name is James Jackson, and again, I work out of the Office of Organizational Development. My role there is called Transportation Diversity Recruitment Strategy Coordinator, right? But today, we want to share with you one of our innovative programs. As we know, we're all facing challenges with recruiting and retaining talent that will help us move our initiatives in transportation. So today I just wanted to give you a brief history of the program and just kind of talk about a few of the things that support why we do what we do. Right? All right. What was shown on the last slide was MDOT, we have a house, an initiative for a house. We're hoping to build an infrastructure within our agency that will protect, reassure the success of our transportation programs, and be able to grow and keep people invested in our state through the Department of Transportation. So when we talk about a house, one of the things that people like to add to their home is a pool. But figuratively speaking, we want to really increase our talent pool, and we want to make sure that we're able to sustain the work that has been done as we stand on the shoulders of giants. Just to report out, we intend to be leaders in our organization in everything we do representing the state of Michigan. So last year, at the Transportation Research Board acknowledged the work that we're doing to create, to repair the leaky pipeline of recruitment and create a diverse workforce. They shared it with the whole country. We're leading an innovation in this program called the TDRP. So as we talk about the history of the program started taking a look at a glance of what we have to offer here in Michigan. Michigan is known for having some of the best universities, some of the most hardworking people ever, and we are really passionate about serving our constituents. So with that being said, we really want to focus on creating equal opportunities for all as we embrace opportunities for diversity. So if you take a look at the chart, we started with 4 people. So this year will actually be our 9th year, but even with the challenges that COVID brought forth, we were able to expand to 59 participants last year. Next slide, please. All right. So we support our director, all right? Our director is known for vision, motivation, and commitment. So we tried to reflect that in the work that we do. He challenged us to take a stab at growing the program to 65 interns versus 59 last year. So what do? We meet the challenge and exceed the goal. We were able to do that by working with ACEC, American Council of Engineering Companies. Not only as a state and public organization are we committed to goals, but we want to include our whole state, including the private sector. So through working with ACEC, we've been able to expand our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as work together to nurture and build the future workforce in transportation. So this program is a 13-week program, all right? It will begin on May 15th, and it will go through August 12th. It used to be a 10-week program. However, to meet the aggressive goals of a construction program, we want to make sure that students are here to do the work that's necessary. So, as I mentioned, we're teaming, partnership, just like everyone in this room. Our biggest stakeholder is ACEC right now, and it will help people understand whether they miss the opportunity or they take the opportunity. We're all champions with helping them realize how the work you can do in the public sector can translate to success in the private sector, which makes us competitive among other states. So one of the focus for us is to invest, right? When you talk about investment, you invest your time, you invest your resources, but our hope is that we can engage people that want to be here in Michigan, people that are able to do the work that's necessary to keep our constituents safe and keep our roads developed properly. So the way that we're able to do that is through partnering with the Federal Highway Administration, and we get support from the 504E funds. 504E funds support women and underrepresented groups in their efforts to learn about transportation, keeping them engaged, providing the stipends for the education that they're pursuing, and just some wraparound services that will keep them involved in what we do. So as we move forward, the reason why this program is important, we not only meet the barriers, we overcome the barriers, just like Maslow's hierarchy. People, when you are able to give them shelter, you're able to meet their common needs, they're more invested in learning and growing. So within this program, outside of completing the work that's scheduled, we have a robust mentoring program where we partner with other organizations and people throughout the state that are committed to Michigan. So, as I quickly come to a close, I wanted you to all to be aware that here in Michigan, in order for us to be successful, we must embrace every partnership. We must make all of our students, all of our mid-level executives aware of the possibilities that lie within partnering with state government to meet our common goals to be successful. But I want to ask at this point, are there any questions? All right. Well, thanks for your time. I heard you mention that you would be joining us on our showcase. The date for the showcase, I'll get some information out, but the date for the showcase is July 28th, and it will be held at One Campus Martius in Detroit, Michigan. So for those that do have a cell phone available and you're able to see the QR code, you can actually input your name if you're interested in being invited. So thanks for your time today, and have a good day.
Thank you both, James. All right, we are on to the STSC presentation. Carol and Steve.
All right. Last time I did a presentation on this on STSC, I had a little trouble, so now I'm hoping that it worked this time. So thank you. I'm Carol Aldrich. I'm the engineer research in the research administration, which is in the Bureau of Field Services. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about STSC, Michigan State Transportation Innovation Council. I'm going to talk a little bit about the what, the who, and then the how, and get into some of the projects that we've done over the past years too. So just a little history. STSC came along from the EDC initiative that FHWA started in 2010 timeframe. And in 2012, we actually then signed our charter, and there's a few of the folks, there's a lot of folks in there, Ted and Tony, folks that have been involved in STSC for a while, and it was a great opportunity. It's that innovation focus, and it's a fun thing, it's to be able to talk about the innovation that MDOT is doing. It's coordinated effort between MDOT and FHWA. We basically are trying to pull together all of our partners, the public and private group, to be able to talk about what are the innovations going on in each of our agencies. The who is the government side of it. It's MDOT and FHWA that lead it, along with the counties. I've got Steve Hurry, who's going to come up after my presentation and talk a little bit on the county side of it, the local side of it. But we did add in the Senate and House representatives to be able to, that was in 2019, that we expanded our group to be able to sit down and talk about innovations for each of the agencies. council there. And they go through what's going on at the national level. The funding that comes through, the federal funds that come through for STIC, we get about 100,000 each year. We try to utilize those the best we can. Michigan had the very first charter signed for STIC, and we've been working on it ever since. So, just a few other areas to look at. We do have a website that keeps track of our innovations. There's a lot of videos, recordings on there of what's been presented, meeting minutes, who the members are. Our group, Research Administration, we put together a story map that kind of outlines for whether it's new members coming in or somebody who's just interested, what is STIC. We now have a nice interactive story map that goes through and explains what is STIC. We have our MDOT Innovation website. This is something we rolled out in 2020, trying to have as many innovations out there as we can. This is just MDOT innovations at this point in time. Whether we expand out into other innovations, we haven't decided at this point, but focusing on the MDOT first, research, work zones, new materials, innovative contracts, and technology. We have about 55 out there. It gives a quick blurb, and then you can get in there and dig in deeper on each of the websites to get more information on what those innovations are all about. Now, I want to talk about a little bit of the projects, the STIC incentive projects over the years. 2016, we did, you'll recognize some of these as, okay, this is a start. STIC's always that, get that fund, that seed money to try and get this and move this forward farther. Like the DDSA, the super air meters, those were two of the projects that were funded with that 100,000 of federal dollars that came into the state of Michigan. It's 2017, we had the M2D2, and then the utilizing the 3D digital design for field applications, so training sessions. Get a lot of like peer exchange type activities, guides, those type of things that we start. 2018, we had the MDOT 2D hydraulic, the modeling peer exchange, and then the pavement warranties, the training that went along with that. 2019, we did the cone penetration testing, and then the virtual public involvement, the VPI. There was a guidebook that was put together. It was a great tool, and we've got a lot of project managers and such behind the scenes for all these projects, doing a lot of hard work to put this together. This is a dashboard, our innovation dashboard that FHWA puts together. You can see up in the top right-hand corner, there's the 796,000. That's over the 8 years. We've tried to utilize that 100,000 each year, and we've completed the 12 projects out of the 17 that were awarded. And I'm proud to announce, and my transition's working here, we did receive an award in 2021 from, it's a combined from AASHTO and FHWA, that our STIC Council received an award, and it was recognized for expanding its already diverse membership, making significant impact towards fostering a strong culture for innovation. These are some of the documents, FHWA, the innovator, and you can see where Michigan, I tried to highlight there, if you can see that's pretty small, but highlight some of the things, the virtual approach to capturing public input, the VPI, and just the articles that go out there nationally for other states to see what is Michigan doing. These are the upcoming projects for 2020 and 2021, working on peer exchange for the cone penetration testing, the UAS equipment and guides. We've got a phase 2 for the VPI, the virtual public involvement. And then we've got local road research board and the emergency disaster response playbook, local side of it, to be able to, you know, get everybody. It's a whole transportation partners. And I'm going to turn it over now to Steve to come up and talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol, and good morning, Commissioners. It's my pleasure to present the local agency side. And who am I? I was actually brought on to serve in a role that coordinates issues between County Road Association, Michigan Municipal League, and local MDOT on all items that are kind of local agency related. And this is just one of the hats that I ended up evolving into. So there's been a lot of coordination with a lot of the department heads here on various issues over the years. But on the STSC in particular, there's been 3 grants that local agencies have put forward or initiated, often partnering with Michigan Tech, the local technical assistance program. That would be pavement warranty training. Carol covered that earlier. So that provided training for all the local agencies. A lot of the commissioners didn't know what that pavement warranty program was all about, so we put some videos together utilizing the STSC program, very successful. That's a completed project. But what I'll talk about really are these bottom 2 ones on the page here. Just hit it? Okay. Okay, so the first one we'll start out with Local Agency Research Board. This is an idea and concept we came up with. Often the local agencies that come up with ideas, they end up being kind of one-offs. They might try it on a local road and talk about it at an engineering, annual engineers workshop, and it kind of gets stuck in the drawer. It doesn't really advance to be an accepted practice, largely because there's not a true research component that goes along with that activity. In working with the department, they have their plate full on research activities for the trunk line. Yet 92% of the roads are run and managed by local agencies. And those really are kind of the forgotten ones that we're looking at through this Local Agency Research Board. We had a peer exchange of 4 other states that came in, 4 distinctly different models, but a lot of them have been in place for over 40 years. And they gave us a lot of good ideas where this has gone. There's been a final report put together by Michigan Tech. It was presented to the County Road Association Board on Monday, and they have decided to put together a policy that they would advance through all the membership. They have an annual meeting in March. That's going to be voted on whether they want to go forward with initiating some kind of local research board. And if it goes forward, it would probably be something that would be MML CRA funded out of that share of the MTF because MDOT already has their own research program. The next item, okay, there we go, is a local agency disaster response playbook. There's been several disasters over the years. It's about every 18 months to 2 years there's a major disaster. There's been a few of them in the UP, often rain events, huge rain events. And of course, the biggest one of late is in 2020 with the dam breaks in Midland and Gladwin County and those. But anyways, what has come out of that is these, once again, are major issues for a local road agency generally that often it's well over the size of their annual budget. And yet they don't know what to do first. They know how to take care and protect the public, but then what do they do to start rebuilding this infrastructure when they have no declaration from the governor, they have no declaration from the president whether there's going to be money forthcoming, and their only avenue is really to dig into their Michigan transportation funds that are really there to maintain the rest of the road system. So we're looking at, again, what was just completed in the last couple of weeks was a roundtable discussion of all the state department heads that assist with these disasters when they are declared by the governor or the president, as well as the ongoing programs to find out where the gaps are and how do we get something in place so that local agencies have the confidence they can move ahead and fix something or capture the right data so that they have all the evidence to be in line for submitting a grant or receiving an award based on that declaration going forward. So the idea is to put again together a playbook, kind of a relatively short playbook for them, and some quick hitting videos that in the moment they can watch these videos and see when they're working 16-hour days, running from pillar to post to try to capture what's going on in their county. They might be able to listen to this stuff and figure out how do I direct my staff, what should I do, what kind of evidence I should get. So that's a goal and objective and hopefully an outcome. And again, this is all fostered by these STIC grants to get that seed money to look at these items. This has a long way to go to come to fruition, but there seems to be some interest at the legislative level to actually put something in place. But with that, there's one more slide? Okay. Yes.
My question would be, because I served as a road commissioner for 20 years, and local roads is always an issue with the local road commissions. As you said, they usually have the majority of the roads. I was wondering if STIC would do in-person presentations at local road commissions. Because I think a lot of the township supervisors are always looking for innovative ways in materials and different things, warranties, all kinds of things, to get their best bang for their buck.
Yes, and that's why we think this local research board is kind of that formal avenue where we could actually look at and kind of select projects that really have some promise and merit. It's really field testing of research that's already been done and applying it on a road system that it's not as high a risk as putting it on a freeway type project, yet it might show some merits. But taking this program around, that's a good idea. I don't know how we'd pull that off. But it's something that, I know at the county, speaking for the County Road Association, we'd be happy to bring this around if we kind of know what venue you're talking about and
Right.
what you want to hear.
Well, I just think it's a best kept secret, probably from the road commissions.
I guess I'd ask kind of a similar question, but more generally. Carol, you showed where there were a number of the innovations cited in some of the national publications and so on. Is there much of any promotion of different breakthroughs and innovations more generally? There's a cynical public out there, and I think what you all are doing, what the Transportation Asset Management Council is doing, I mean, people don't realize, I don't think generally. So is there much, and maybe Jeff Cranston could address it, is there much external exposure provided for a number of these initiatives?
We do try to get that information out there. That's information overload, any more these days. We try to create videos. That was the innovation website that we put together with our state innovation alignment team, and trying to put out what we can to say, look, this is what we're doing. And I know our office through research, our research projects, we have GovDelivery emails that go out to, and a lot of those are the stakeholders, the transportation stakeholders, but we do use Twitter. We're trying to use, all the different social media type. We work with the communication office. Oftentimes we have our librarian who is excellent at trying to get this information out, but and some of the projects go really well. The green strobe light research example, that one had a lot of hits when it was, I know Jeff can probably talk on that more, but that was one that was surprising that one became such a popular thing, but we do try our best. And like I said, we've been trying to create videos, which I think those short 2 to 3 minute videos help a lot because people can get on YouTube and take a look and get a good understanding rather than taking a long research document and reading through everything. So,
Thank you.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and I would say from the County Road Association, which I kind of spend a lot of time helping them with their activities, there's a monthly update that I put out and often use that as a platform to get the information out to the engineers and managers at the road commissions. It's also offered to MML to distribute to their members. CRA puts together a really good quarterly magazine, the Crossroads, that has often had articles about the innovative things that are put out. And then we work closely with Michigan Tech. They put out again, a quarterly, I believe it is, bridge. They call it the bridge. And that's usually dedicated a lot to innovation. So those are the things that we try to get the word out on those projects, but they don't, like I said before, even though they're great projects, they both describing the successes and those are shortcomings, but those that are successful have not evolved into changed standards and specifications without the research component attached. And that's what I think the shortcoming and why the research board concept is being floated to see if that can lift that, not just get the word out, but have some staying power where there's actually an accepted practice that could be funded on a future federal aid job.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Good morning. I'm Eric Mullen. I'm the Division Administrator of the Asset Management and Policy Division within the Bureau of Transportation Planning. And kind of one of the detriments of going last is that a lot of this stuff has been covered, so I apologize. But the director's report covered quite a bit of it, and Zach spoke about a lot of these things as well. So hopefully we'll get you out of here in a good time for lunch. But the IIJA covers a lot more than just highways, and so, you know, there was a lot of talk of this $1.2 trillion that was coming, and a lot of people thought that that was MDOT and for roads. But this is just a list of all the things for power and water and pollution. There's a lot of things that go into it. I'm mostly going to concentrate on the highway side of it, but again, a lot of this has been covered earlier. So this is just a transportation, these are the areas of transportation funds that are within the IIJA. So you can see the largest sector is still roads and bridges, but there are other sectors that are gaining funding as well. So this funds our highway program for 5 years, as the director pointed out, which is good, but it isn't a long-term fix. There is dollars there. It also includes, you can see in a couple of spots under the $350 billion and down below, that there are appropriations from the general fund to kind of prop up this large bill as well for transportation. So that means that it's not really based on user fees, which is what we've always kind of dedicated to, although there have been general fund transfers over the last several years as well. There are more than a dozen new highway programs, which I'll hit on a few of those shortly. But the focus is on safety, bridges, and climate and resilience. And then there are a lot more funding opportunities for locals. These are some of the new programs and a lot of the eligible recipients. As you can see, there's a lot of MPO and local tribal recipients who are eligible for these funds or to apply for some of these funds in some cases for the discretionary programs. There are also things such as the Public Authority and the Federal Land Management Agency are the other ones on here. Now I'll go through just a few of the programs that are kind of highlights and some things that are somewhat new for us and things we have to learn as we go, as we await guidance from FHWA and others. We have the carbon reduction program. We have to put together a plan in consultation with the MPOs to develop a carbon reduction strategy. So we're going to get started on that in order to spend those funds on projects that might reduce carbon. The Protect comes to us in two formats. This first one is a formula one so the state gets some money. This is for resilience, for areas that flood or have repeat disasters, areas that we are concerned about on the coast. You know, Michigan has a lot of coastline, so we should be well prepared for that. There is also a Protect discretionary. This is one where we have to compete with all of the other states. There are a lot of discretionary programs, and we're positioning ourselves to take advantage of as many of those as we can. A couple of other highlights are the charging and fueling infrastructure. Again, that one along with the next one, which is the National Electric Vehicle Formula, being kind of referred to as NEVI a lot. We have to put together a plan by August 1st on how we would spend these monies, and we're working with the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification as well as EAGLE on trying to come up with a plan to spend these funds. And then I think kind of the remainder of this, I'll go quickly through, is this chart the director shared earlier, just kind of showing how we have front-loaded and a lot of the bonding there. The gray boxes at the top, which are a little hard to see, that is the kind of the new IIJA funding. So it's not a great portion of this, but the IIJA also includes kind of the blue bars too. You know, that was, it's our normal program that we've always expected. The gray is just kind of the increases from IIJA. And it doesn't really, this is a pavement graph I think you've seen many times over the years. This doesn't, the IIJA investment doesn't increase our pavement condition as much as we would like, but it is still something we are keeping an eye on. I think the director did a very good job on the Main Streets stuff, so I don't need to touch on that anymore, but just trying to make sure that we're coordinating all of these various things that happen in Main Street areas. And finally, there was just a map of some of those projects, and the director's report had some more defined locations as well. So that's all I had today. Any questions? All right, thank you.
I don't know if I'm as a public or as a commissioner, but I made it a point to remember this at this meeting, and Jeff, this is addressed to you or your staff or whomever, but unbelievably professional job is being done out there, at least on Facebook, that I could see, where there are comments about MDOT activities and so on, and you know my hobby horse here about the cynical public, but it's unbelievable some of the statements that are made, and your folks that respond to those in such a wonderfully professional, accurate manner really deserve our appreciation and thanks for the job they do. I don't know how they are able to maintain their cool and to answer them so well, but kudos to whoever does that, Jeff.
I've noticed the same thing, and I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to respond on the MDOT site and just don't respond. By the way, who manages the page, the MDOT Reach All? I subscribe to that page as well. It's wonderful. Which page? MDOT Reach All, that machine that goes and can go under. Oh, if you don't subscribe to that page, it's a great page. It's a great Facebook page. It's very interesting. Well, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second? All right, we have support. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.